Now, the only thing people like better than rogues are rogues on a path to redemption. It helps if they're charming and animated. Aaron Blabey's comic book The Bad Guys has cleared a successful opening weekend on the big screen, bringing the heist movie to a younger audience. Way younger. Generally speaking, not old enough to drive younger. Unlike Tricks, however, this isn't just for kids, so we can ditch the bunny and dig into how the book was translated, its cast, and some of the references it's made to the genre on the way. Oh, alright, the bunny can come too. He was the one denied the Tricks, all thanks to its for kids rule. Warn him about the spoilers, Rabbit. At the center of The Bad Guys is, of course, the big bad wolf, Mo to friends, at least in the comics. It's Mr. Wolf who encounters the most powerful thing a dog can encounter. Someone called him a good boy. It's this moment that makes Mr. Wolf want to break good for a change. Unfortunately, when you've made a life of being bad, being good can be tricky. The comics has Wolf coming to the same conclusion through different means regarding being good and forming the Good Guys Club. Personality-wise, the big screen Big Bad Wolf was less huffing and puffing and more charming and fast-talking, fitting voice actor Sam Rockwell's delivery. Now, whether it's the comics or the movie, Mr. Snake takes on the reluctant role when it comes from going from bad to good. In the comics, Mr. Snake tends to be the one mocking Mr. Wolf over any failure in doing good. In the movie, the Mark Maron-voiced character shares his ink and paint counterpart's reluctance about going good, including turning a guinea pig rescue into an all-you-can-eat buffet. Now, when it comes to muscle for the group, the rough stuff is left to Mr. Piranha. In both mediums, he is short-tempered and ready to rumble at the slightest suggestion. He also carries over his toxic flatulence problem. In the movies and comics, it's triggered by nervousness. And, at least in the comics, his love of burritos. It's worth the cost, man. Burritos are delicious. The most noticeable change from ink to computer is Miss Tarantula, who is a Mr. Tarantula in the comics. Both are computer whizzes and provide the all-important hacking skills for the group. In the comics, he goes by the nickname Legs, but Miss Tarantula, voiced by Awkwafina, gets the internet pun name of Webs. In the comics, Mr. Tarantula is the only member of the anthropomorphic crew who doesn't wear any clothing except for sneakers, something that disturbs the rest of the crew. He doesn't appear until the second issue. Now, if James Gunn's The Suicide Squad taught us anything, it's that having a giant bipedal shark on your team is invaluable. He can eat problems, drop from incredible heights, and take all kinds of abuse, and he's a master of disguise, and okay, well, maybe not that last one. The movie makes a bit of a joke about the least inconspicuous member of the team being a master of disguise like Rollin Hand from Mission Impossible. The TV series, the first one. In the movie, he has a rivalry with Mr. Snake, mostly revolving around the last push pop. In the comics, his rivalry is more with Mr. Tarantula owing to his arachnophobia. If you're gonna have bad guys do good, you need a bad guy for the good guys to do good against. Wait, let me check the math on that. Bad, good, bad. Yeah, checks out. That task falls on the adorable shoulders of Professor Marmalade. In the movie, he's masquerading as the goodest good person to have ever gooded. Except he's not good, he's bad, and only using his good reputation to cover his bad deeds. In this case, stealing the meteorite to power his master plan. Gotta have a master plan. In the comics, he's discovered when the Good Guys Club rob his chicken farm, and he vows revenge. Also, he's an alien that's named, all these letters on the screen, Try filling that out on a Scantron. Someone has to be rooting for the bad guys to actually become good guys, and that role falls to the governor, Diane Foxington, the new governor who feels like the bad guy's whole shtick has about run its course. A little flirtation, a bit of encouragement, and an appearance as the Crimson Paw, legendary bad guy thief gone good, and the bad guys are on the road to redemption. In the comics, she's a superhero from the League of Heroes. And her name is Ellen, but she more commonly goes by Agent Fox. Probably should have seen that one coming. Now, part of the pitch for adapting the bad guys into a feature film was to create a kind of Tarantino movie for kids. Obviously, the charming cast of characters doing heists and stuff part, and not, well, all the parts that you could never show your kids. Despite this limiting factor, there was still room to make nods to the iconic filmmaker. And it gets right underway as the opening scene finds two characters engaging in casual conversation in a diner before casually getting up and committing a crime. Now this of course mirrors the opening of Pulp Fiction, which saw Honey Bunny and Pumpkin casually discuss the robbing of the diner they're in. These seemingly meaningless discussions that end up revealing character or plot later on is a child-friendly hallmark of Tarantino's film. Perhaps even easier to translate into a kid's movie is Steven Soderbergh. Specifically Soderbergh's Ocean series, a remake of a classic Rat Pack heist film. The primary take from the Ocean series is the talk-through of the plan, including doubling back for the twists and double and triple crosses. In the first one, Ocean's 11, Danny's team chastises him for making the heist personal, robbing from the man who is currently dating his ex. Likewise, Mr. Wolf is accused of making things personal when he plans the heist to steal the dolphin statue after Diane Foxington made fun of the bad guys at a press conference. In Mr. Wolf's opening address, he points out that he has been the bad guy in all the stories from Little Red Riding Hood to the Three Little Pigs. Well, it turns out that his entire team has a history of playing marquee villains. Wolves are at the center of the Liam Neeson thriller The Grey. Snakes have held the bad guy role in movies like Anaconda and Snakes on a Plane. Mr. Shark, of course, made it not safe to go back in the water with Jaws and 100 not quite as successful imitators. Miss Tarantula was one of the many menaces in the movie Arachnophobia that made hunting spiders with a nail gun seem cool until your dad took it away because he doesn't like fun. Don't play with nail guns, kids. Even Piranha got a headlining role in a monster movie, including James Cameron's Piranha 2, which he insists is the best movie about flying piranha ever made. Now, one of the themes of the movie is not to judge people by what they look like or the assumptions about them. Just like being bad guys in other films, the metaphor works as well. As often as wolves are used in fairy tales and movies as a menace, it was friendly wolves that started hanging around humans that led to man's best friend, and while dangerous, not as big a threat to humans as they're made out to be. The tarantula, however, has the best case, as they are less poisonous than a bee and pose no threat to humans. In fact, many people keep them as pets. When it comes to Miss Tarantula, she really isn't a threat. Well, except for the hacking skills, but that's not common among tarantulas. Animation is a fertile ground for hiding all kinds of nods and tributes to people and places that have nothing to do with the story, but help fill the world. Crew members will get businesses named after them. CalArts students like to place A113, the animation lab classroom number, on anything they can. For instance, for the animated money, the animators went with where their money was coming from for the portrait: President of DreamWorks Margie Cohn. Now, the action of the bad guys takes place in a no-name city as part of a no-name state. But if you've been to the City of Angels, you might recognize the look of the town. Director Pierre Perifel drew inspiration from Los Angeles, as it was the setting of so many heist and detective shows from the 70s onwards. While no specific landmark was used except the home of car chases, the LA River, which is more of a canal, except it rarely has water in it, outside of that, there weren't specific landmarks, but instead the stucco and design style evoked Los Angeles. There were some nods, too, to San Francisco during the car chase specifically, which is a nod to the godfather of car chases, Bullet. Barreling down the stairs is also similar to the original Michael Caine movie, The Italian Job. Now, the look of the characters and movie in general has gone through some changes from the wild line drawings of the comic book. Director Pierre Perifel wanted to put his own touch on the characters that included some of his influences. Starting from his native France, he also included influences from Miyazaki and Cowboy Bebop. Perifel specifically noted Cowboy Bebop's influence on the design for Mr. Wolf. Now, there were some rather direct connections to the Oceans franchise outside of narrative cues and nods. Awkwafina, who voices Miss Tarantula, was the expert pickpocket in the movie Ocean's 8. Another Ocean's 8 holdover was composer Daniel Pemberton, who has also scored numerous other crime thrillers and Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Susan Misner did the choreography for the movie and had a bit of a head start with Sam Rockwell because she'd worked with him previously. Now, the movie got a little extra when it cast the voice for Piranha. Anthony Ramos is heading to 2 different big franchises with a part in the upcoming Transformers Rise of the Beasts, as well as the Disney Plus Marvel series Ironheart. But what made him a star was his time on Broadway in a little-known musical called Hamilton. And by little known, I mean that thing your coworkers kept talking about for at least a year. It was one of 2 Lin-Manuel Miranda musicals that he appeared in. Now, anytime a movie enters production, there's a wish list of people they want for the various roles that has about the same success rate as your Letters to Santa did. For the bad guys, everyone seemed game and got their first picks. Marc Maron is new to voice acting. He has so far had a career as a comedian's comedian and the host for the long-form interview podcast WTF. He admitted that he never even watched that many cartoons. He ended up taking the role because he was surprised that people were asking. So far, his approach to voice acting has been to be loud so they can ask him to take it down to wherever they actually need it. Now, a lot of computer animation, especially in CGI effects, is focused on crossing that uncanny valley. Now, that's the part of your brain that apparently knows the difference between something alive and something pretending to be alive, but won't tell us how it does it. Tricksy brains. That generally means really complicated programs that simulate the fur of an animal or hair of a human animal. The success of Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse has reopened computer animation to more stylized aesthetics. While most of the time the goal is to enhance the 3D look of the animation, Perifel wanted the coloring to feel more like 2D cell-style animation, as if you could see the brushstrokes. Now, you can't properly supervillain if you're not in some way tipping your hand. Despite operating in the city of the world's greatest detective, Joker still manages to post up in the most obvious places like the rundown amusement park. Professor Marmalade gave a hint at his heel turn when, to soften the bad guy's image, he put them in adorable onesies of various animals and a rainbow unicorn for Snake. Mr. Wolf, of course, wore a sheep's clothes, literally becoming a wolf in sheep's clothing, something that Professor Marmalade was figuratively. One of the things that probably contributed to the cast being on board was a certain global event that made gathering in groups large enough to make a live-action movie difficult. So most of the cast were sent production recording setups to do their parts from home. Maron lived 8 minutes from DreamWorks and enjoyed the short commute. Sam Rockwell and Maron were the few members of the cast that got to record together, which is fitting since their relationship is at the center of the movie. In an interview with Polygon, Lily Singh, who voices Tiffany Fluffit, admitted that she agrees that Mr. Wolf has got it when asked about the internet's attraction to him, saying, "Mr. Wolf is kind of a daddy. I see that now. I've never thought about that. But would I slide in the DMs? I think I would. So I do think Mr. Wolf is kind of hot. I do think that animals have the swag of like someone I would think is fly. So yes, I see all of that. I'm not mad at the internet for this one." The movie stands aside from the comics, making several changes, including turning Lily Fluffit from a cat to a person. See, now that last name makes cartoon sense. In order to get the good deed ball rolling, Marmalade invites them to save a cat from a tree, a sequence taken from the comics. But also the title of the Blake Snyder screenwriting guide, Save the Cat. The title refers to the suggestion that the hero needs to do something like save a cat in the first 5 to 10 pages to let the audience know they're good. Now, if you want to start a screenwriter riot, walk into an LA Starbucks and ask, "Is Save the Cat a good book?" Opinions are divided like pineapple on pizza. From the late 60s to 70s, gritty crime dramas had a noir-inspired look that was all their own, and to go with it, they tended to have jazz fusion-influenced scores, which is something Daniel Pemberton revisited, looking at scores by legendary composer-producer Quincy Jones and Lalo Schifrin, who composed the jazz-heavy score to the Steve McQueen classic Bullet. With an estimated opening weekend haul of $25 million, The Bad Guys has industry writers proclaiming that the world is safe for family animated movies that don't have Spider-Man in them. With a cinema score of A and an 85% fresh rating on Rotten Tomatoes with an audience score of 93%, The Bad Guys has come in strong.
I saw that.
Beating the Viking epic The Northman and the meta Nick Cage movie The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent. Not bad for the director's first time at bat. Professor Marmalade's evil plan was to steal the heart-shaped meteor that struck the town and use it to power a giant mind control device that would allow him to turn all the guinea pigs the bad guys freed into a massive mind control army. While this is a unique story for the movie, it does resemble Marmalade's comic book plan from episode 4, where he turns kittens into a zombie army. Zittens, if you will. We got through 25 entries about a movie called The Bad Guys without one Billie Eilish reference. Woo! We did it! Wait, the video's not over yet. Oh, blast my giddy exuberance! You foiled me again! Let's just say it's Marmalade's fault. Seems like something he'd do.